Thank you very much. Any last thoughts? Any closing remarks for young people, advice for us?
I would say, if I could, I would say to every single, particularly young person watching this, that we serve a living God. We serve a living God. And so, no matter where you are, no matter what you're facing in your life today, God lives.
Yes.
He lives. And you need to, as a child of God, you need to walk the earth knowing that your God lives, that He's with you every day. He's in every moment, every struggle, and every triumph. And I think the reason that's important is, in particular, I think young people today feel lost because it's hard for them to remember that we serve a living God.
Do you think, I know we said we're closing.
Ah, it's all good.
But do you think there's a yearning amongst young people to connect with God, a desire to know where they fit in, a desire where their potential
not
and
just the
future
yearning,
is?
it's a visceral hunger. I think that it's a palpable, tangible desire to feel God, to covenant with God. You see it here in your church. I mean, I had the privilege of being backstage and just seeing the Spirit of God move with these young people. It's unbelievable. Yeah. And yet these are the same young people we're being told are the lost generation. It's the craziest thing, right? But I think it's a visceral hunger. I think young people are hungry deep in their bellies to know God, to feel God, to covenant with God, to be in the Spirit of God, and to love Him fully and rejoice in everything that is God and of God.
Yes.
Right? And so, last thought, I just want to say this. It is incumbent upon the generations who understand, particularly the older people, to disabuse themselves of this notion that young people aren't seeking God. That's not true at all. At all. It's definitely not true.
No.
But what is true is that young people today have a very discerning eye for what is real and what's not.
Yes.
And I think that you're going to see a movement of young people who truly understand how God moves and who are seeking that out. And so even these, false prophets who are all over the place, I think you're going to see consistently young people begin to go, I'm not sure that this is of God, right? And so I got to tell you, I'm excited for what God is doing with this generation. And I see, and I'm sure you do too, God raising warriors in all sorts of spaces and beginning to infiltrate and intercede in spaces that we hadn't seen previously before. And the responsibility for all of us as believers, no matter where in your journey you are, is to recognize that we serve the same God, that we're on the same mission, that we have a responsibility to remind society of its values, no matter how unpopular that might be, because our God doesn't live in time.
Yeah.
So He's not worried about trends. Right? He's not on a hashtag. He's not an ephemeral God. He was in this moment before this moment was, as He will be tomorrow where He was yesterday. Right? Yes. So that God, that's the God we serve. And I think it's such an important responsibility, particularly for young people watching this. Remember that. You serve a living God. Serve Him every day. Serve Him diligently. He's loving. He is forgiving. He will show up for my life as a testimony of this. He will show up for you, especially when you don't deserve it.
And that's the grace.
And that's the grace. That's the grace. That's the favor. I don't know about you. I mean, this is what you do, Pastor, I know. But for me, the more I come to learn of God, I just get so excited. I'm just like, how come nobody told me these good news? It now makes sense why they call it the good news, right? You're just like, wow, God loved me that much?
But that encounter with God, it alters your life.
True story.
It changes you.
True story.
It changes you internally. It doesn't change just externally. It changes in some of the habits you change, but it changes your heart.
Yeah.
It seems God is moving in your life in a mighty way.
Yeah, my experience has been that if you don't listen, he's going to keep slapping you until you do. It's probably a good idea to listen.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, everybody.